for say for process control, making processes, deleting processes, ending processes, aborting processes, loading processes, and so on. There are system calls for maintaining, getting the date, the time, setting the date, the data, communicating between processes, protecting processes, maintaining security, and so on. So many system calls. Now, I also told you what is a system call. It's a very simple thing. I told you in the story of the operating system is very clear. The CPU is the brain or the heart of the computer. You are the user, and the operating system does a lot of coordination with respect to that. So the entire time it is toggling between the user mode and the kernel mode. I have told you this again and again. User mode means you are using some application program, you are banging on the keyboard, you are deleting files, you are using Microsoft Teams, you are using Microsoft Word, you are editing files, you are watching movies. So all these are application programs, and this is a user mode. But what is a kernel mode? On the backdrop, the operating system is coordinating the activities of the CPU in a very effective way, that in the backdrop many processes happen. So actually you are probably deleting a file. Okay, you are deleting a file. You press the delete key, you go to the mouse cursor, you put the mouse, you delete. Actually what is happening is you are now in user mode. Soon the operating system takes control without you knowing it also, and it invokes a system call like this. You can see system calls: create process, exit process, create file, delete file. So when you are pressing the delete key, taking the cursor, selecting a file, you are pressing the delete key. Actually what is happening is the operating system is invoking a system call, and that action happens. So this is what the system call is. So the operating system makes in one single minute many times, perhaps hundreds of times, it is toggling between the user and the operating system. In fact, you may also know when you are typing, I'm just telling you, you are going on typing. The screen, it will take, sometimes you go on typing, immediately you are able to see it on the screen. In some cases you will see that the image comes, whatever you are typing comes on the screen after a little late. Why? Because although you are going on typing in user mode, the operating system is switching between user and kernel mode and doing the operations in the backdrop so that it is coming on the screen. So in a second itself, many times it is moving from user to kernel mode. And in a minute, maybe hundreds of times it is happening. So that's what I covered in the last class. So today I'm going to give you some idea about the basic fundamental operating system. And one more thing that is very important is, for these system calls, there are system calls for process control, file management, device management, means input output devices, for information management, saving information, storing information, communicating, protecting, and for everything they have what is known as a utility. A utility is nothing but a user interface to the system calls. So you are banging the keyboard, you are deleting a file through the system utility. It invokes a system call, and when you press the delete key, a system call through a system utility, it connects to the system call, and whatever deletion has happened will happen. So the system utilities are interfaces, application interfaces or user interfaces to the system calls, and these utilities will obviously mimic to the system calls. There will be utilities for file maintenance, deleting, addition, for status information, for storing files, for loading and execution, for communicating, and so on. So this is the important thing. Utilities are interfaces to the system calls. Now, let us see, yeah, this is what I was trying to tell you. Let us see the different types of simple operating system structures. If you take an MS-DOS, which is the first major operating system from Microsoft, Microsoft DOS is the precursor to Windows. The story goes that actually it was not developed at Microsoft. It was developed in some other company called, I think it was called QS DOS, QD DOS or something, quick and dirty operating system, QDOS. And the idea of the QDOS, I think Microsoft bought that company called Quick and Dirty Operating System, which basically was the platform for them to re-engineer and develop MS-DOS, Microsoft DOS. Now, the biggest success of MS-DOS was that, or rather the visionary idea of Bill Gates was that at that point of time, nobody thought that this computer is going to become so popular and so ubiquitous. Okay, it is a product some people are using, some geeks and tech savvy folks were using it, but it was only Bill Gates that figured out that this is going to be there in every single office, this is going to be there in every single home, this is going to be there in everybody's hand. And that is when he talked to IBM saying that you guys have got a PC. You guys think that this PC is so, but I am telling you this PC is going to be a big thing. And every time you sell a PC, you will need an operating system to run it. And I will give you that operating system for a very small consideration. But every single time you sell an IBM PC, you will pay me money for the operating system. And the story goes that this deal with IBM was a very, very major thing. And the IBM PC sold like hotcake. Rather than thousands of PCs, which even IBM did not think, it exceeded their wildest imagination, and millions of PCs were sold, and every single PC had MS-DOS, Microsoft DOS. And Microsoft became a mega company. They made so much of money, and then they started improving on it. They brought out Windows, and the rest is history. Today he's the second richest, or probably the richest man alive, because of his share. And I mean, I don't want to talk about his personal life and stuff, but I'm just telling you that definitely he was a visionary, right? And the first operating system that became so popular was the MS-DOS. Now, MS-DOS was not a modular program. It had a layered architecture where an application, so if you see, it's a very intelligent thing. On top of the BIOS drivers, there is MS-DOS drivers, resident system program, and application program. But then even the application program you could invoke through the device drivers. So this kind of a non-modular architecture and a layered architecture with interfaces was MS-DOS. It was not at all a great product. It was a simple product, but it was useful in the sense that at that point of time it was a good thing. It was not very stable, there was no security, and it was limited by the hardware. Then came Unix. Unix, of course, was a very, very strong, stable operating system. And in Unix, there was a clear, some sort of semi-layered architecture. You have the user, then you have various layers of the operating system. You had multiple shells. Each shell provided with a command line interface. Now, you could have different shells. It's not one shell. You can use different type of shells. Each shell had different commands. You had interpreters, compilers, and then you had what is known as the kernel. The kernel today is very, very critical. As we know that the kernel is the you can say the brain or the heart of the operating system. Whatever command you get on the shell, the kernel does that major execution and so on. So the kernel commands have are the operating system function, and on the other side you had the hardware. So in Unix, now you have a layered, more or less a layered architecture or a semi-layered architecture. You had shells which were connecting to the user, and you also had interfaces that were connecting to the hardware. So actually speaking, you will see that the operating system bridges the between, the user and the hardware, and there were 2-3 layers within. This was safe, this was stable, this was secure, this was not prone to many crashes like MS-DOS, which had a fairly simple architecture. But then you may ask me what happened. Well, as I mentioned, that is the visionary, the vision of Bill Gates, that he could get the best deal out of IBM, and Unix could not. Unix had some disadvantages initially itself, that probably they were not much into marketing. They were not able to convince IBM about the PC, and probably there were some hardware issues also. This is a little complicated hardware, but this is a very simple architecture. Came what is known as layered architecture. Every layer there is some level of abstraction. One layer is on top of the other. The hardware is here, the user is here. Each layer resides on top of the other layer, and this provided a modularity. Of course, Unix also some level of layers was there, but this is not fully implemented, and this provided some sort of modularity and abstraction. Now, Unix also developed into higher end flavors like Solaris and so on, and added what is known as microkernels and modules as well. So within the idea of a microkernel is that the kernel, which is the heart or brain of the operating system, between the user and between the user and the hardware, you have the shell that connects the user, gives the command, and then you have the kernel. So this kernel in microkernel, some part of the kernel, like a microkernel, is now available with the user. And this is a different architecture. One of the Apple Mac OS partly was based on microkernel, and this was good for efficient communication, giving the user more facility, making it more portable, more reliable, more extendable, and so on. This is the microkernel architecture. You had, rather than one kernel, you had different microkernels, and each kernel, so on top you had many shells, right? Many shells were there. Now the kernel itself you could break down to microkernels. The next step was developing. Unix developed into modular approach with the advent of object-oriented systems. Loadable kernel modules were available. You could take the modules, add the modules, delete the modules, modify the modules, and do these things. And we got what is known as Linux and Solaris. If you ask me, Solaris is probably, I mean, my experience in terms of stability, in terms of security, there is probably no operating system that can match Solaris. And that is why many of the servers, Sun servers and all, Blade servers run Solaris, because from a server point of view, highly stable, highly modular, highly flexible, and so many things you can plug and play. You can add a module, delete a module, those things were there. And that is why even today, because of these features, this modular approach, Solaris continues to be the operating system of choice for servers. Maybe you in your home computer or on your laptop, you may prefer to use Windows or Linux, but when you go to a server, it's always nice to have a Solaris machine, which is a high-end version of Unix. Solaris is a high-end version of Unix with a huge modular approach, and Linux is nothing but a more of a graphical user approach to Unix. But then you can say Linux is somewhere in between. It is little more user friendly, little more available user friendly. At the same time, some features are there, modularity is there. It may not be so stable or secure as like Solaris, but then it definitely has its advantages. Now there is also a trend towards combining operating systems, combining shells, combining kernels, and so on. Aqua, Cocoa are some of the examples. You have a layered approach. You can combine. Even some people combine Mac OS and Mac OS and some shell of Linux or Unix. Those things are also possible. They are hybrid systems. Mac OS follows the system. This is Aqua is the GUI. You have application environment. You have a microkernel. You can use a BSD is a Unix flavor. Mac is another flavor. You can have microkernels, and so on. An extension of Mac OS is what is used in your iPhone and your iPad. The iOS operating system for Apple devices, which follows Cocoa Touch Media. So this is the layers for the Apple iOS, Cocoa Touch for API, application program interface, media services for graphics, audio, video, core services for cloud computing databases, and core operating system based on Mac OS. And of course, another open source, a massive movement today, the Android, which is promoted by Google and a whole lot of companies, an open source, open handset alliance like Linux, similar to the iOS stack, but it's highly flexible, highly secure, highly safe, and extendable. Now, I'm sure all of you, many of you use Android phones. There are people who swear by Android phones. No doubt, number of apps, number of facilities are very, very high in Android. But then, some people use Apple phones also. I mean, I've been a committed Apple phone user for 10 years. I don't want to change. I get what I want in my Apple phone, so I don't have to complain. Perhaps I don't get the number of apps that would be available in an Android architecture, but I'm pretty cool about it. So that's the kind of the case studies of different operating system that we are seeing. In the next class, we will see about virtual machines. I'll close for today. You can stop the recording. Let me take your attendance. Just give me a minute. Ardra, Aaron, Ashika, can you please